I'm alone in my room.
Thank you. Clerk, Selectwoman Julie Gilman, good evening.
Good evening. I am alone in my room. My husband may wander by.
Okay. The Vice Chair, Selectwoman Molly Cowan, good evening.
Good evening, everybody. I'm here alone in the room.
Thank you. I'm Nico Papakostandis, and I'm also here alone in the room. With us this evening as well is the Interim Town Manager, Melissa Roy. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. I am alone in the room, but my children and family are somewhere in the house.
Great, thank you. And our Recording Secretary, Joanne Bartel. Good evening, Joanne.
Good evening. I'm here. I'm alone in the room.
Terrific. Okay, we're going to jump right in. We have a very full agenda this evening. Next would be the swearing in of elected officials, and I'll turn that over to the town clerk, Andy Kohler. Good evening, Andy.
Good evening. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm here to swear in our Selectwoman Molly Cowan. She was recently elected. I'm ready whenever you are, Molly.
I'm ready. Thanks, Andy.
You're welcome. Raise your hand and repeat after me. I, Molly Cowan.
I, Molly Cowan.
Of Exeter, New Hampshire.
Of Exeter, New Hampshire.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will bear faithful and true allegiance.
That I will bear faithful and true allegiance.
To the United States of America.
To the United States of America.
And the state of New Hampshire.
And the state of New Hampshire.
And will support the constitutions thereof.
And will support the constitutions thereof.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I, Molly Cowan.
I, Molly Cowan.
Do solemnly and sincerely.
Do solemnly and sincerely.
Swear and affirm.
Swear and affirm.
That I will faithfully and impartially.
That I will faithfully and impartially.
Discharge and perform.
Discharge and perform.
All the duties incumbent on me.
All of the duties incumbent on me.
As Selectwoman.
As Selectwoman.
According to the best of my abilities.
According to the best of my abilities.
Agreeable to the rules and regulations.
Agreeable to the rules and regulations.
Of this Constitution.
Of this Constitution.
And the laws of the state of New Hampshire.
And the laws of the state of New Hampshire.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Molly.
Thank you. And thank you for doing that in small chunks.
You're welcome. Just one thing, if I'm going to put this in your box, if you would sign it for me, and then I'll certify it and we'll be all set.
Absolutely. Thank you. It is a pleasure to serve again. Thanks, Andy.
You're welcome.
Congratulations, Molly.
Thank you.
Andy, before you duck out, if I could bring you back for a sec, if you're still there.
How's that?
That's perfect. Have you notified or will you be notifying all other elected officials that need to be sworn in?
Yes, I have notified all of them either by mail or by email, and I've had some responses, and so we'll take them. It's at their convenience, but they need to come in before their first meeting.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is the Select Board reorganization, and let's start with the chair, and I would look for nominations for chair. Selectwoman Rountree-Olaf has her hand up.
Yep, I'd like to nominate Nico Papas. I'm going to ruin your all this time I should perfected your last name. I'm nominating you, Nico, to be second.
There's a motion and a second. Are there any other nominations for chair? Madam Clerk, I don't see any others. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Thank you, Nico.
See none, I guess, Madam Clerk?
Selectman Brown.
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectwoman Rountree-Olaf.
Aye.
And the clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much. I'm both honored and humbled by your faith in me. Next, we would take nominations for vice chair. And Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
I would like to nominate our newly re-elected Madame Cowan as vice chair.
I will second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectman Brown.
Aye.
Selectman Woman Cowan. Will you accept?
Aye.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
Aye.
The clerk says aye. Mr. Chair.
Aye, motion passes. And now for the final office, I'll seek nomination for clerk.
Mr. Chair, I will nominate Julie Gilman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other nominations for clerk? Seeing none, any discussion? Okay, Madam Clerk.
It's kind of weird. Selectman Brown.
Aye.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
Aye.
The clerk says aye. Mr. Chair.
Aye, motion passes.
Thank you
Okay.
all.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, next we will go into public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to weigh in and comment to the board, although we do ask if your comment is pertaining to anything on the agenda that you wait until that agenda item comes up. And at this moment, I will pause to see if there are any hands for public comment.
And Mr. Chair, I'm going to sign off at this point and defer to the board for the rest of the night.
Okay, be well, Mr. Selectman Brown. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
We have a hand up, looks like Chetna. Evening, how are you?
I just wanted to double check whether I should wait on the meeting till later. Wanted to talk about the Swayze Park situation in terms of potentially allowing yoga studios to hold classes outdoors in the summer as the weather warms up.
That's not on the agenda, so I would let you comment on that now. If you would, please just state your name and your address for the record.
Yeah, sure. My name is Chetna Palmer. I live in Exeter, 17 Grove Street, and I'm mainly making a comment with regards to sort of as a yoga teacher and who works at Exeter Power Yoga, obviously with the pandemic and the situation. The number of students that are allowed within the studio is limited, of course. And throughout the lockdown last summer, there was the opportunity of doing the classes, offering the classes, both for health and mental benefits, of course, outdoors. And I know the owner of the studio, Tracy Cavallero, I think she's on this call as well, listening in, but I'm sure she can potential of looking to see if there was viability in offering or use of the space at the back far end of Swayze Park. So that's open to an opinion, and obviously in terms of helping the town and the small businesses that are trying to still hold on to the businesses and trying to make it viable for people to still use the services and what is offered by Exeter as a whole, and stop it from becoming buildings becoming empty because the businesses have folded. So trying to keep the vibrancy of the town alive, and also providing a service such as yoga, which is immensely beneficial for one's health, both physically and mentally.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next we have Tracy Coviello. Good evening, Tracy. Hi, Tracy.
She is currently unmuted. I don't know why no sound is coming through.
Okay, while we work on that, I see Selectwoman Roundtree-Olaf has her hand up. The Selectwoman?
Yes. I was just going to chime in. I was going to wait until Tracy and Chetna had completed their comments, but I just wanted to chime in, being in favor of trying to figure out a way to allow for small businesses to have access to the park, so that we can maintain and continue some safe measures for businesses to stay in business. Along the same lines of what we did with restaurants having sidewalk capabilities and extending their services in a way that we might not have approved before. I think it's important that we maybe take a second look at how we can assist them, and look at scheduling, look at nominal fees, if no fees at all, but coming up with some idea, because I think it's important that we allow for this, as now we've realized that we're a full year into this. And obviously as vaccines are starting to be distributed, we're not quite at the end yet, but we do need to, I think, have a real life discussion about how we can help businesses, because we have lost a few, and I would hate to see others that could use our assistance.
Okay, thank you. Tracy, have we fixed your sound yet? Any ideas, Dan?
Tracy, if you can hear us, perhaps you can do a quick call in on your cell. There's on the agenda, you should be able to see how to call in with your number, and hopefully we can get you in soon. But
I was just about to say, if she calls 646-558-8656 and enters the webinar code 890-0587-4577, she should be able to join that way.
Thank you, Dan. Dan, while we wait for Tracy, could we let Joanna has a hand up? Could we let her?
Can you hear me?
Hi, Joanna. Good evening. If you would, please state your name and your address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Joanna Rahm, and I live at 105 Front Street. I've been a resident of Exeter for 16 years and a regular at Exeter Power Yoga. And I just wanted to comment that I fully support everything Chetna was saying, and I'm so glad to hear Mrs. Roundtree's Orliff's comments as well in support of all of our small businesses in town. I feel like it's such an opportunity to enrich the vibrancy of our downtown space during a time when people are feeling so disconnected. I loved that we were able to see things like the wine bar having a platform out along the river, and anything that gives us a chance to also just see what does and doesn't work and how we can continue to move forward in this new world is awesome for, I think, everyone and the town. And to keep businesses open is so important as people are all challenged financially and choosing where to spend their money and wanting to be outside. Living on Front Street, I see so many people walking. Thank you for the consideration.
Thank you, Joanna. Do we have Tracy back on?
If her mic still isn't working, she can either email us at extvg@exeternh.gov, or she can call 603-418-6425, and we can get her, we can help her out that way.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dan. And Chetan, I see your hand up, but I want to give everybody a chance to speak once first. But we'll get back to you. Next, we have Scott Ruffner.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Good evening, Scott. How are you?
I'm good. Scott Ruffner, 11 Hall Place, Exeter. Okay, sorry, I actually just got a text message over here from Tracy. She's having trouble getting on. So if someone can say that number again, I could get it to her. But I wanted to also voice my support for figuring out a way to help some of these yoga studios, use some public spaces for their classes. I do know it would be interesting to hear if you guys have heard any complaints or issues. I know there's a Tai Chi group that has been doing regular classes down in Swayze, right on the Parkway. So, it would be good to know if that, was a problem for anybody, or if anyone had heard any concerns on that. But, I think there's plenty of green space. And when I spoke to Tracy about it, I recommended that she give Greg Bisson a call, but then also go look in the back of Swayze. The green spaces there that are very underutilized, as a potential resource. So that's just my 2 cents. Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Do we have Tracy on yet?
We do have a number. If that is Tracy, she can press *9, and that will raise her hand. Otherwise, she can again contact us at extvg@exeternh.gov, or call at 603-418-6425.
Thank you, Dan. Okay. Chetna, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to add, I just wanted to add that Tracy has reached out to other yoga studios. I think there was a concern that if one yoga studio was allowed to do it, then it wouldn't be fair on other businesses. And I know she has reached out to the other yoga studios in town, but is yet to hear back from. So again, it was from sort of a logistical point of view, the yoga community is fairly small, and, we do all know each other. So in terms of scheduling availability of that green space at Swayze wouldn't be an issue, because we could work out, a simple timetable if other yoga studio was also interested in using the space. So, there are sort of obviously concerns whether the space is available to utilize. And I think from living in town, and also as Selectwoman Lovey said, we've been through this for a whole year now, and with temperatures rising and people, wanting to be outdoors and to be able to use the outdoor space is important. And again, for the town to show support to the small businesses that make this town vibrant is essential. So I would really greatly appreciate the town consideration in allowing the businesses to continue to operate and be here for the community. I just received a text from Tracy. So I don't know.
Is she 8373?
There's another number here. We've got another phone number, Jean Donnelly, and then after the public has weighed in, we have several select board members that have their hands up as well. It looks like it ends in 2628. Is that 2626?
That would be 2626.
Is that Tracy? Hello?
2626 is me. Hi.
Is this Tracy?
This is Suzanne Stone. No, Suzanne Stone.
Hi, Suzanne.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. Could you state your address for the record, please?
Sure. It's 21 Forest Street in Exeter.
Thank you.
Should I speak or do you want me to wait?
This is your time to comment.
Hi, guys. I'm just calling in support of this proposal. I think, we need to all agree that these are unprecedented times, and they call for a little leniency and thinking outside the box. And when it comes to making sure our businesses stay in business, that is especially important. I know Tracy runs a wonderful business that has an enormous impact on this community, and her vision has provided a lot of, has provided a community on its own. And I know that this pandemic is causing a lot of pain to a lot of people not being able to participate in her program. And I'd just like to say, it doesn't have to go on forever, but I do think as a resident of Exeter for the last 20 years that it would behoove us to consider letting our small businesses and our not-for-profit organizations use our public spaces. I think that's what they're there for, and I think it really promotes a sense of community. And I'd also like to add that my sister owns a fitness studio in Newburyport. I had a long conversation with her about this, and she told me that Newburyport has a process for dealing with this, and in fact, since COVID, has dropped their fees for small businesses to use their public spaces because they want their businesses to stay in business. She also told me that she has conducted classes outside in Haverhill and in Amesbury. So I'd like you to consider that these towns around us are doing this and have found a way to make it work. And that's it for me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jean Donnelly with a hand up.
Hello.
Hi, Jean.
Hi there. I'm Jean Donnelly. I'm at 109 Front Street. I've been here in Exeter for 8 years. I also teach at Exeter Power Yoga with Tracy. And I'm sure she is very frustrated right now that she can't get on here and share with you guys tonight. I want to thank everybody who's already commented in support of us going into Swayze to share classes. And I just want to agree with all of the great points that were already made, and just add that, yoga, the longest class that we have is about 75 minutes. We'd probably have an hour class. Each class would be an hour. And you bring your mat, you practice your yoga, and you roll up your mat and you leave. So this is an activity that doesn't involve equipment. It doesn't involve food service. It's very gentle on the land and the space. And we were offered space at the Old Town Common last summer, and it was very generous, and we're grateful for that. It is a busy corner and very loud, so it was very challenging to teach with the fire engines and the traffic going by. So we're really hoping that you'll consider us going into Swayze, which is much quieter, especially in the back area, which I hope Tracy will have a chance to share with whomever the location that we were thinking that would be least intrusive to people enjoying the park. So thank you so much.
Thank you. We have another hand up, Mr. David Druin.
Hi there, can you hear me now?
Hi, Dave, good evening.
Hi, good evening. I just wanted to chime in and support for Tracy.
Just state your address for the record, sir. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Of course, yeah. David Druin, 27 Ernest Ave, Exeter, 9-year resident. I've taken part in some of the Tai Chi classes down at Swayze, and I've also provided the music for a couple of yoga, big yoga things, which by big, I don't think they usually have more than 20 people with them at any given time, but I provided music from the stage at the gazebo down there for some really cool, like half an hour long yoga sessions. And I just wanted to voice my support for taking part in these things and its positive result on like mental health as a yoga practitioner myself and a Tai Chi practitioner. Like they go beyond, I think, like the classic essential business, like let's keep our small businesses alive, and actually like into the realm of like, we need this and these practices now more than ever. And even though, like, you know, we can stick them on a corner near as the last caller just said, near fire engines going by and traffic and stuff, knowing that the classes really don't exceed, you know, more than 20 to 30 people tops, it seems like a no-brainer to me to be in wild support of offering the more quiet, easily able to concentrate and teach green spaces that we have here in town for the what I think is more than just the essential businesses, but what is a positive reinforcement on the mental health crisis that we're dealing with as the result of the pandemic. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Druin. And I will offer, I know Tracy's having difficulty.
Hi, Nico. If I have Tracy on speakerphone, I don't know if you guys can hear her. Tracy, can you go ahead?
We can try.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Tracy. If you could state your address for the record, please.
My address is currently 15 Hunt Road in Kingston.
Okay. Before you weigh in, any objection from the board allowing a non-resident? There's no objection, so go ahead, Tracy.
Okay. First of all, I just want to thank everybody that has spoken thus far in support of Exeter Power Yoga holding classes in Swayze Park. I really don't have much to add. I just think that it would be a great thing for the community, a great thing for the studio. We are going into our slow season, and it would just be super helpful to be able to hold these classes outdoors and get us through the summer. And I really appreciate each and every one of you, and I know we've taken a lot of time tonight, so that's all I have to say.
Great. Thank you, Tracy. I'm glad we finally got to hear from you. We don't have any other public comments. I'm going to bring it back to the board at this time. Selectwoman Cowan had her hand up first, and then Selectwoman Gilman.
Hi, everybody. I am really excited. I'm glad that you're coming back before us, Tracy. Sorry about the the Townhouse Common offer not working out, I know we're probably at least a couple of weeks away from people wanting to be outside, considering the weather. And I would love if our economic development director could sort of reach out to other businesses that are in this cohort, like musician classes, or, if somebody's teaching an instrument, voice lessons, things like that. And also do our due diligence in terms of reaching out to the other yoga studios. I also think that yoga is really beneficial. It's truly been keeping me sane during this pandemic. And then the other question that I would have, and I think that this is a conversation for maybe Darren, maybe Tracy to do, to check with you, and then Greg, about Rains Farm, because that's another big sort of beautiful open space that we could potentially offer, that is much more private than Townhouse Common.
Great. Thank you, Selectwoman Cowan. Selectwoman Gilman.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I totally agree that we need to use our outdoor space as much as possible for the businesses that can use it actively and well in their practices. I was just going to ask you, Mr. Chair, we have several Swayze Parkway issues that perhaps we should consider all at one time. Mm-hmm. We've gotten several emails about the road closure, and there's also the little pocket park that's been proposed. Mm-hmm. And also, should we not be talking to the Parkway trustees?
Yes, and all of the above. And that's what I was thinking while the public was commenting. Obviously, we'll be talking in a little bit about whether or not we're going to extend the closure, because the last time we moved that, it was through March 23rd, I believe. So we'll be addressing that this evening. But also, I think to bring in the Swayze Parkway trustees for a conversation at the select board level. Also work with Greg, Parks and Rec, and the economic developer. I know it was probably springtime of last year. Greg Bisson, the economic developer, and the code enforcement officer, Doug Eastman, and I met with Tracy, and we tried to find some other alternatives. But certainly with the interest in the Parkway increasing and all of the correspondence that we have in our packet, I think you're absolutely correct, taking a holistic approach to what can we do with the Parkway and how are we going to make it most beneficial for all of our citizens and small businesses. So I would anticipate that being on the agenda in the next couple of meetings.
And just to follow up on Selectwoman Cowan's comment about their Rains Farm, that's also a great choice for being out in nature and taking advantage of the trails that are out there too. That comes under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. Just putting it out there.
Yeah, I think it would be great because it's such a big space, and especially if we have more than, one or two groups who are interested in utilizing something like this, that might be a good other space. I know it's not quite as flat for some yoga mats, but there are spaces that, and I know this because I've been sledding with my children there about 1 million times. So there's a ton of space there that could be used.
Okay, Chet, and I see you have your hand up. I'll go back to you one more time, and then we really need to move on with the agenda. We will be discussing this further in the next couple of meetings, but you do have your hand up, so go ahead, please.
And Mr. Chair, Selectwoman Rantriola.
Yep, I'm going to have her close. Yep.
Hi, Nico. Thank you. I just wanted to add, in terms of the suggestions of the different green spaces available, I would also say that in favor of Swayze Park, it would greatly benefit if people are coming to a yoga class, they could go off and they could, go into the local shops, and also the coffee shops of D2 and Laney Lou's and benefit other businesses as well. So, and also, with in particular with the Exeter Power being just on the other side of the bridge, to be in town would benefit, with people being able to use other businesses in town, as opposed to sort of driving all the way out to Rains Farm. Just as a thought.
Thank you. Yes. Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
Merely going to echo exactly the same thing, that it just encourages more spending and foot traffic downtown. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay. We do not have any proclamations or recognitions this evening, so I would look to jump to the approval of the Exeter Select Board minutes from the March 1st, 2021. If there are no amendments or revisions to the minutes, I would look for a motion to approve the Select Board March 1st, 2021 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
Aye.
And the clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you. Next, we move on to appointments. We interviewed Elizabeth Stevens for the Energy Committee back in late January, and I would look for a motion. And Selectwoman Gilman, remind me, I do not believe there are term limits on the Energy Committee?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay, then I would look for a motion to appoint Elizabeth Stevens to the Energy Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
Aye.
The clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Elizabeth, and welcome to the Energy Committee. And then last, we're going to revisit the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee. As we can see in the packet, the interim town manager, Melissa Roy, had also kept a spreadsheet. And we had a discrepancy on two individuals that looks like they had 3 votes each, and that was Todd Herron and Marissa Vitolo. And I know Selectwoman Gilman, you were the clerk. I think you wanted to weigh in.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to ask forgiveness for my fellow select board members. I did not have my screen adjusted to see all the hands raised, so I was just looking at the ones near your faces and only saw the bright yellow ones. Okay. So that's why the counts were 3, and I really, sorry.
Okay. The counts for 4 of the 7 that were appointed received 5 votes. 2 of the 7 received 4 votes. And then again, Todd Herron, who we had appointed with 3 votes. Also, we had Marissa with 3 votes. So before we move forward with action on this, any comment from the board, any suggestions? Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
I might make the suggestion that because of the error of the board, that perhaps we just go forward with the 9 members and have the ones with the least amount of votes for 1 year. And then after that year is completed, we revert back to perhaps 7, or we can have a further discussion about it. I just think that, that was more on our part than theirs. And it just seems unfair to redo that whole process. But we can certainly have a discussion about it.
Okay, thank you. The charge in the committee that we voted on was for 7 members. So we would have to go back and formally rewrite that if that were to be taken under consideration. But I'll open it up to the rest of the board if anybody has any other comments or suggestions, recommendations. Selectwoman Cowan?
Yeah, I would be happy to revote. I mean, I think that that's probably what we should do. I think that we had a committee for 7 people. I feel comfortable with the 7 people committee. And I think that we should revote because I don't want to put people on the committee or, I think everybody deserves a fair vote here.
If we were to go that route, though, I would want Selectman Brown here.
Yeah.
So the 5 of us, I think that's only the right thing to do. Selectwoman Gilman?
Yeah, along that lines, because we don't have the full board here, we can also consider Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf's suggestion in doing, because we have the time to reconsider the charge. So if we do this at our next meeting, we can go either way.
We could also look at it, Selectwoman Roundtree-Olaf, instead of, well, we'd still have to revise the charge, but rather than doing that, we could consider the 7 members and 2 alternates. That could be a compromise?
I think that works.
However, I think that Selectwoman Cowan is correct that we should probably just revote when Selectman Brown is back. That will allow time for staff in the next 2 weeks to update. We could decide tonight, I guess. We'd have to vote, but whether or not we want to revise the charge to include 2 alternates.
Yeah.
And if I recall, Selectman Brown, when we had this discussion back in the fall, actually was lobbying for 9 people anyway. So I'm sure that wouldn't be something he is opposed to. That's a suggestion. I'd throw it out to the board for comment.
That seems fair.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So could I entertain a motion then to have Town Manager's Office revise the Arts and Culture Commission to include in its charge 2 alternate members along with the 7 voting members?
So moved on that.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Roundtree-Olaf?
Aye.
Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Passes 4-0. Melissa, if we could have Pam change that, and then we will have that on the agenda for the March 29th meeting to proceed and revote for all 9 interviewees. All right. Thank you all. I think that's a reasonable and fair resolution. Okay, moving on to our discussion items. We have the election results to go over. I'll go through this very quickly. Again, congratulations to Selectwoman Molly Cowan. Also, congratulations to Kate Miller, our new town moderator. The 3 trustees of the library, Mary Lafreniere, Denise Leonard, Laura Weiskell. The trustee of the Robinson Fund, Leslie Haslam. Congratulations to Darius Thompson, who's the new trustee of the Swayze Parkway, and also congratulations to Peter Lennon, who is now the trustee for the trust funds. For the sake of brevity, we've been through the warrant articles previously. All of the warrant articles passed, and unless there's any specific discussion from the board, and I'll open it up, we can move on. Okay, seeing none. Chief Wilking, I know you're there.
All right. Good evening. I am Mr. Chair and Select Board. Congratulations, Molly, on your reelection. So the COVID front has been busy. In addition to that, and you probably have watched the news or heard locally, there's been quite a few fires lately, not only in the Seacoast, but the state. And the fire marshals, and we believe there's nothing nefarious going on. It's just a bunch of happenstance. But we were both in Kingston and Brentwood for a substantial fire, and last Tuesday, Wednesday, Exeter had a couple of small fires on our own that we were able to quickly extinguish without injury. But it's all keeping us busy. As reported out, the COVID numbers continue to look better in each passing week. The state, the county, and Exeter are continuing to see the effects, I believe, of increased vaccination, people getting outdoors, the springtime, and of course, the practice that we've been doing now for over a year with social distancing and mask use. None of that hurts. Everything is moving us in a positive direction. Numbers have come down to about 1,500 positives a week in the state. Exeter had only 14. Just to kind of give you a perspective, we've been running in the high 20s and 30 a week, so 14 is moving us in a great direction. So we hope to see those continue. The fixed site at the Exeter High School is still vaccinating nearly 800 a day. I spoke to Captain Miller the other day, and they had a record of 846 one day last week. So lots and lots of people receiving not only their first shot, but their second shot going through. There have been some rumors circulating that the site at the Exeter High School will be moving. I have heard the same rumors, but I've been assured by the guard that the site will remain functioning and operational until a suitable replacement can be found. I know the school has been a great host to that site. However, spring sports and getting outside once the weather breaks is also important. So we're all looking at a suitable spot to move that site, still keeping it within Rockingham County so we can get people of the seacoast vaccinated. Our personnel continue to help with that fixed site daily. But in addition to that, Chief Pizon has taken on the role as my vaccination coordinator, and he is working with the public health region. We've already vaccinated all the residents at 277 Water Street or the Swampscott View apartments that are over 65. Obviously, they have to fit the governor's directive of the phases here. We are vaccinating the residents at the Exeter Mill properties tomorrow. That'll be Tuesday. Look forward to doing that. And then in addition, you've probably heard again that both President Biden and Governor Sununu have identified teachers, daycare workers, and associated staff being a priority. So they've been kind of moved up. They're a week earlier than scheduled, but we have partnered with the Exeter schools and Exeter U16. The Exeter Fire Department will be leading the charge to vaccinate about 1,100 teachers and staff. We began today with the Tuck Learning Campus, the SST, and made a trip out to Newfields. And every day this week, at least one or two more elementary schools will be captured around the region. Culminating in Saturday, we'll capture the high school staff and the middle school staff at the high school itself. This is separate from the fixed site. So if the teachers are listening, they will go into the school and we'll vaccinate them inside while the normal flow will go around the school to the back of the school. And that'll complete phase one. If you've ever watched the movie Groundhog Day, you can understand that they're using the Moderna vaccine. No matter what clinic we hold once, we have to hold again. So because it's a two-shot series. So exactly 4 weeks after the first, we've scheduled second vaccination days for every property in Exeter as well as the schools. So this will keep us busy for some time to come. But my hat's off. The school nurses throughout the SAU have stepped up. Many thanks to them as well as other responders around are going to help us out so we can have plenty of vaccination staff on board. So we do not anticipate any great amount of lines or delay in getting this done. So we're proud to take part in that effort. The last bullet I had on mine was from a personal note. Many of you know I spent the 3 days in Loudon working at the super site. We were able to vaccinate over 11,000 residents. Many of those had appointments out into April, and we're able to move them substantially up into March to get a great handle on many more of our vaccinations. And this has allowed us to move teachers and other segments a little closer, a little sooner. We did have some issues on Saturday, so if there are any residents listening and you made the trip up on Saturday, my apologies, but at 14 degrees, it was freezing the actual vaccine in the syringes before we could even get the shots administered, and every electronic device we tried to use ceased to function. So we quickly moved to paper by 10 o'clock in the morning. We had hoped to vaccinate 500 an hour, and we had only vaccinated 500 by about 11:30 in the morning. So you could see the backup. But we ended the day half an hour late, still vaccinating 4,000 people. And then the people that came on Sunday, Monday did not see any issues. We hope to recreate that. There's another planning meeting tomorrow. I'll be taking part in to see if we can kind of do a mini 2-day clinic up there. But the nice part about that, or the different part about that, I should state, is we used New Hampshire's first batch of Janssen, or better known as Johnson & Johnson. So it's a one and done. Those 11,000 will not have to see a second dose. They're able to have that first dose. That's the goal of the next clinic as well there. 11,000, 10,000 of one and done, and we're quickly moving the population so we can try to get down to that under 50 group where everybody else that hasn't been identified as priorities can kind of get in line and get hooked up with their PCP or one of the pharmacies or a clinic. But we're hoping to quickly get down into that time frame and meet the president and the governor's goal of by May, the general population, by meaning that the younger, less risky. So that is my report for this evening. Things are looking good, looking in a positive direction, and that's something to look forward to for all. So I'll hang on for any questions, and if James says something, we can move on there. But thank you.
Before we get to Mr. Murray, any questions for Chief Wilkin? Great.
I thank you all.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, Mr. Murray.
Hey, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. To piggyback off what the chief said, it is good news coming out of the state. The governor has adjusted the safer at home guidelines in some aspects. So retail stores may be open at 100% capacity now. Restaurants and bars can now have karaoke, small bands, pool and darts are allowed again. And in cosmetology, salons and barbers no longer need to operate by appointment only. They can have their waiting rooms open and have walk-ins. Also, last week, I believe it was about 8 days ago, the CDC released new guidance on vaccinated individuals and the safe practices for them. This only applies to private settings. So again, the governor's mask mandate is still in effect. Our mask mandate is still in effect. But in private settings, fully vaccinated people can stay in their homes or have other households that have been fully vaccinated, commingling together without needing masks or social distance. And more information on that is available at the CDC's website. Again, that is for private settings, not out in public. Other than that, that's all I have to report at this time. Are there any questions?
Great, thank you, James. Any questions for Mr. Murray? Okay. The last piece under the COVID-19, the Swayze Park closure is set to exhaust before we meet again on the 29th. So I'm opening that up to the board to discuss or consider making a motion to extend closing Swayze Parkway to vehicular traffic. Selectwoman Rountree-Olaf?
I'd like to make a motion that we close off the Parkway to traffic. I don't know, do we need to set what's the timeline that we would have to set for that? Because personally, I would set it forever, but.
We've been setting it for 60 days. I think there was one time in the spring we did it for 90, which brought us through the end of December.
My gut says 90, which would give us, a good amount of time through the spring, allow for vaccinations to happen for all various groups. And perhaps we can use that as our launch board for that. And then, we can have further discussion. We had so many positive responses to it via communication from folks in town that it would be hard to ignore.
Yep, I agree. There's a motion for 90 days. Selectwoman Gilman?
Yes, I'll second that. But also, I think the 90 days is a good idea for right now because we may change, because of all the vaccination and the drops in numbers, we may have a further discussion about just closing it permanently or not. I've talked to some people who actually don't want it closed permanently, so we really need to have a back and forth with that, and then the uses of the park and the Swayze Parkway trustees. So just going back to that, having a 90-day, time certain is a good idea for now. So,
and that's an excellent point. And I think that, without getting into the discussion this evening, we've heard folks, who have corresponded with us that want it closed. And as Selectwoman Gilman said, there are some that want it open. It is in a trust. So there are certain steps that would need to be taken to even consider closing it permanently. And those are things that, can be investigated. But ultimately, if all things went well, it would have to go to town meeting as the last resort or the last step anyway. But we would want to engage with the trustees, obviously, and I believe there are some steps we'd have to take at the state. So it's not something that would just be at this level, but we can investigate that further. Selectwoman Rountree-Olaf, for the sake of just because I like round numbers. 90 days brings us to an obscure date in June. Would you amend your motion or consider amending your motion to take us through June 30th of 2021?
I shall. Okay. So I would like to make a motion that the Parkway stay closed until June 30th, 2021.
And I will second that motion.
Great. Thank you. So let's take a vote, Madam Clerk.
Selectwoman Cowan? I think she said yes.
Yes, I.
Selectwoman
I was still laughing about your lyrics. Yes.
I second the motion.
Yes, and Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf said yes in the midst of all our chatter. The clerk says aye, Mr. Chair.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you for the motion, Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf. Okay. Next, we have economic developer Darren Wenham for quite a few agenda items, the first of which will be a public hearing to RSA 79E relative to the Pearpoint Group at 23 Water Street. And I will this time turn it over to Mr. Wenham. Good evening.
Good evening. Do you guys, I don't remember the way we do it. Do you folks go into public meeting now or public hearing, open the public hearing, or do I just give you the spiel, then you do it?
We need to entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
Okay. Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf?
Aye.
The clerk says aye, Mr. Chair.
Aye. Motion passes. The public hearing is open. Mr. Wenham.
Yes, thank you. Apologize for the glasses, and I apologize. I'm going to have to read. There's a lot of items tonight, so I'm going to have to read the memo so the public knows what's going on. And I've been told to go slow and not use acronyms, which I will do. So the first item, Pearpoint Group LLC, owner of 23 Water Street, received from the town of Exeter 7 years of tax relief through the Community Revitalization Tax Relief Incentive. That's RSA 79E. As part of the approval, Pearpoint is required to have all the work outlined in the covenant to protect public benefit completed, quote, on or before June 30th, 2022. It's in your packet. Owing to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, Elliot Berkowitz, co-owner of Pearpoint, is requesting a 2-year extension with a completion date of June 30th, 2024, which means the building would be done by June 2024, June 30th. Because my office has yet to receive the original covenant of public benefit from Pearpoint, May 4th, 2020 approval, the covenant has not been recorded at the Rockingham County Registry of Deeds. If approved, a new covenant would need to be drafted, signed by all parties, and recorded at the Registry of Deeds. So it's kind of a fortunate thing that we didn't actually do that. I do want to point out that a couple different things. Pardon me, I have a whole bunch of stuff open on my computer. So this particular investment is estimated at $2.174 million, and that is why I think he got the 7 years. And then also, Elliot owns, as we all know, a lot of property in town, and he's put a lot of money into it. Very, very responsible owner. So I think it's not a big ask because of the pandemic to give him 2 more years. And then also, I'm going to turn it over to Elliot to let Elliot know, or let Elliot tell you folks the good things that he's planning on doing with that site between now and the time he builds the building. It won't just be sitting there with an ugly fence. So Elliot, you want to take it away?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Good evening, Elliot.
Good evening, Nico. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm fine. The first thing I would like to say is that we changed the name of Swayze Parkway to Swayze Park. Okay, that's my 2 cents for that. Not that anybody asked me. 23 Water Street is probably the worst place I have ever tried to put up a building, with a building on both sides, the river behind, and then the street. And there's literally no place to stage. And as a result of that, I went down the block and bought another building with a big lot to use for staging. So we were moving along, we were getting ready, and this coronavirus has really knocked us for a loop. Instead of leaving the lot the way it is now, I don't know how many of you have tried Tim O'Brien's Italian restaurant, Il Cornicello, upstairs next door on 11 Water Street, which is fabulous. He is now opening up, he's working on a oyster bar downstairs. And I have given him use of the empty lot. He's going to fix it up, and he's going to do outdoor seating for 2 years right on the river. I'm not sure I'm going to eliminate the ugly fence. I've really grown to like that fence, but we'll discuss that later on. So that's what will happen for the next 2 years. With that, it'll be outdoor dining on the river, and I think it'll be great for the downtown.
Great, thank you. Mr. Wyndham, did you have anything to add before we open it to the public?
Well, other than he's told you about the oyster bar, I was part of my thing at the end, so thanks a lot, Elliot.
Okay, we'll open it up to the public. I'll pause to see if any hands go up. And seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Any questions or comments for either Mr. Wyndham or Mr. Berkowitz? Selectwoman Gilman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My first question is, why was the covenant never taken care of before?
I can answer that. I think what happened was it got put into ether. My guess is we tried to find it on Russ's computer. We don't have access or whatever, so I don't know if he just didn't send it down or if he more likely sent it to the. It has to go to our lawyers, and my guess is it went to the lawyers and it got stuck there. I honestly don't know. I just never received it.
Okay. And I did have another question, but I don't remember what it is now, so move on.
Okay. Thank you, Selectwoman Gilman. Any other questions from the board? Okay, then I would be willing to entertain a motion to grant the 2-year extension as requested by Pearpoint Group LLC.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
Aye.
Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. And now I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing on RSA 79E for the Pearpoint Group LLC.
So moved. Oh, second.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
Aye.
The chair says aye. The clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes. And the public hearing is closed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berkowitz. Nice to see you again.
Thank you, everybody. See you.
Okay. So next on the agenda, we have the public hearing for RSA 79E for the Ioka Properties LLC at 53 Water Street. And I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing at this time.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
Aye.
Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes. The public hearing is open. Mr. Wyndham.
Okay. Ioka Properties LLC, owner of 53 Water Street, is requesting from the town of Exeter consideration for the Community Revitalization Tax Relief Incentive, RSA 79E. Enclosed, please find the Ioka Properties LLC application received in completed form on March 11th, 2021. According to the application process outlined in our website, the Economic Development Department receives the application for review. Upon review, the application appears complete as it details the cost of rehabilitation, which totals $4,475,000, which meets the 15% of the assessed valuation requirement set forth in Section 2, as the current lot is assessed at $590,100. The application outlines the public benefits the applicant feels are being achieved as addressed in Section 7 of the attached legislation. The procedure for action by the Board of Selectmen is as follows. Selectmen hold a public hearing on the application. After the hearing, the Selectmen determines if one or more of the public benefits listed in Section 7 have been met. If the Selectmen determine that one or more of the public benefits have been met, then they must decide the period of tax relief to be granted. In this case, it could be anywhere from 1 to 11 years that begins when a substantial rehabilitation is complete. If tax relief is granted, the Select Board should determine the length of the covenant to protect the public benefits. At a minimum, the covenant needs to run as long as the tax relief period, but can be increased up to twice the length of the tax relief period, which we have not done. We've had it run concurrently. The covenant should be reviewed by our legal counsel at the applicant's expense, so I would recommend any motion to grant tax relief includes this requirement. And that's what I think happened to the last one. But I think if you look at this application, you're going to see that they do qualify for the 11 years. It's by far the largest amount of investment we've had since we've entertained 79Es. And if I can, I'm going to try to do something here. I'd like to, with your permission, Nico, if I can figure this out how to do it, show a little bit of that project, just a couple screens for the public.
Please.
I just want to see if, you know what? I don't think I have that ability. I apologize. I don't think I have that ability. I don't see the thing that says share screen on my thing. Perhaps Sharon. Sharon Summers is here. She might have that, have it.
And these are all slides that are in our packet, correct, Mr. Wyndham?
Yes, absolutely. I apologize. Yeah. So anybody who wants to see them, it's the entire plan set. It's quite extensive. So I don't know if anybody on their team wants to talk before you guys look at it. If somebody in IT can help us out, I could show you something, but short of that, I guess you'll just have to look at the packet.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. David Cowie, one of the applicants, is here with me, and also Christina O'Brien, who is the architect, is here as well. I think I would look to them, particularly Christina, to be able to figure out a way to be able to show you some of the plans that we have here. So. Christina, is that something that you might be able to help with?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. If you can just direct me as to what drawings that you're interested to see, and I have them right up on my screen now.
Do you have the ability to share your screen?
I do.
I was looking at, sorry, if I can see the page here. I was looking at the ones that were 24 out of 54, 24, 25, 26, the kind of ones that show the overall building with the roof deck and the sides and everything like that.
24. Okay, so we'll start here. Let's see. I'll try this and then you let me know.
Sure.
If you'd like to look at something different.
Yeah, that's the one.
Can you see that? Okay, yes. Perfect.
That one and the next four, I think, really kind of will give the public an idea of what this building is going to look like when they're done with it. If you want to describe anything, Christina, about these four that you think is pertinent or interesting, we could take a few minutes.
Sure. I think just something important, aside from brand new doors and brand new windows on the first and second level to fill in the existing openings. These windows on this third level are going to be brand new spaces. These are going to be where the condo units are going to live. And this mayor building sign is currently sitting right here in the front elevation, along with these panels with decorative brick around them. And those are going to be carefully taken out of the building and moved up to this top parapet. So that I think is something important. On the front elevation, this is the Water Street elevation. We're going to install new metal canopies that are kind of in keeping with what was originally designed for the building in 1915. And then we're going to, in the same, refurbish the letters that were on the marquee to install on the front of the building, the Ioka letters. This is the alleyway side of the Ioka, showing the new canopies here. We're adding a new granite stairway down to the lower level, and there will be a door that leads to the lower level that is possible speakeasy or restaurant. Most of these windows are brand new. And they just show the different levels that we have the retail space on the first floor. And we have
condominium units on the second and third. There will also be access just by the residents of the second and third floor condominiums. They'll access rooftop patio from a stairway, and there's a pergola proposed also. And this on the end shows balconies at the first, second, and third levels. And there's going to be outdoor seating at the basement level as well, all on the water side. This is the view from the water. This is showing the balconies at the first, second, and third floor. There will also be a railing and an outdoor seating area at the basement level. And then finally, this is the west view. This is the existing building next door, so that's kind of blocked out, but we'll have a couple new windows on this side, and you can see the balconies in this seating area down below. I don't know if they're in your packet, but I do have some color renderings that we've shown before. Is that okay to show, or is it?
Sure.
Okay. This is a proposed rendering of the front elevation. You want to compare it with what it looks like now. I think it's a nice improvement to the front elevation. And the rear elevation shows this bump out in the back, which will be removed. And this is where the lower deck would be, the lower outdoor seating. And that will look more like this. We'll have our 3 levels of balconies and a rooftop pergola up top. So if there's anything else, please let me know, or if anyone has any questions.
We could pause quickly. Are there any questions from the board?
Nico, can I point out that David Cowie's on as well? Perhaps there's some questions for him. I don't know. Sure. If David wants to say anything.
I'd like to see if he has any statement. Yeah.
Hello. Yes, this is David Cowie.
Hi, David.
One of the 2 owners. The other owner being Jay Caswell. And I think Jay is on this evening also. Were any questions for Jay? But obviously, I think Forbes magazine reported last year that over 100,000 restaurants closed in the U.S. and over 15,000 retail stores. So the 79E program was very important to us in our consideration for investing in Exeter and taking on the project with the Meyer building. And that was over a year ago. And here we are sitting here today, and obviously what's transpired over the course of the last year is now even more important, because we're going to have to convince tenants, restaurants and retail businesses to come to Exeter and open up during this period. I'm sure COVID's going to go on for some time, or the aftermath of COVID. So it's going to be a challenge for us to invest, to get these new investors to come in to the building, be it retail or the restaurant, and anything we can do to attract those new businesses will be greatly appreciated through the 79E program.
Thank you. Any questions from the board for the owners of the Ioka properties? Okay. Darren, any further presentation, or can I open this up to the public?
I just wanted to point one out, just so the public knows, when we say between 1 and 11 years, the reason they qualify for up to 11 years is the 5 years because they qualified. They're in the right district and what have you, and they're in the zone that we created the 79E in. 4 years potentially because of it being in a historic district, and then 2 years because he's creating new housing units. So they do qualify for up to 11, and somewhere between 1 and that is what you would be able to offer to them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I will open it up to the public, as this is a public hearing, and I will pause briefly to see if any hands are up. And seeing none, I will bring it back to the board. And if I could ask that we get our screen back so I can see the board, that'd be great. Thank you. Let's open it up to the board. Any questions or comments? Selectwoman Gilman? Because your hand went up, that's why.
It was just like that. No, I'd like this, I really appreciate this project, and I sit on the HDC as the select board rep, and I made the motion to approve it, and it was conditional on the marquee, and that story's gone. The zoning board let it go. And maybe I might have maybe done this in the wrong order, but one of the reasons that I went forward with the HDC decision was because of what this building and its uses are going to bring to the downtown. But I want to reserve out of that, Mr. Chair, the 4 years for the historic district aspect of this, because although, we tried for, 3 different companies tried to return it to its theater use and were unsuccessful in the fundraising, et cetera. So you have to recognize that this building does need to be something different, as unfortunate as that may be. But in so doing, the changes that are made, although it's in a nationally recognized historic district, the modifications to the building are relatively drastic and is no longer on its own eligible for National Register. So for me, that being one of my concerns, I love the project, but I can't give it that extra 4 years.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? Selectwoman Roundtree-Olive? Okay. Selectwoman Cowan?
Yeah, I just, I understand where you're coming from, Julie, and, the knocking down walls and really changing the structure sort of makes it difficult to give the 11 years. I would make a motion to meet in the middle and give you 9 years because, again, love the project. I heard it on the planning board where I sit. I know that this has been a real struggle to redevelop this and, totally understand that we need to change the focus of the project. So I would make a motion for 9 years.
Okay. Any other discussion or question? Selectwoman Gilman.
Yeah, just to be clear on what we have to do is we have to say exactly what public benefits are being provided here. And that's part of the motion.
Okay.
Selectwoman Cowan, before you make the motion, Attorney Summers, you have your hand up?
Yes, Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I just wanted to point out that while I certainly appreciate the comments of Selectwoman Gilman, the statute actually, in terms of this 4 years, it does talk about the fact of eligibility relative to the qualifying structure and eligibility on the historic places. But then the statute goes on to say that 4 years can also be determined for eligibility based upon the fact that it is located within and important to a locally designated historic district. This is located within a locally designated historic district, and I believe that some of the material that has been provided by our team and or by Darren Winham gives you the historical designation of this district that was done back in the 90s, and it specifically calls out this building along with many others which comprise the total district. So that's a long-winded way of saying that I think that simply because of the fact that there are going to be changes to the structure, and then those changes may or may not allow the building to remain eligible to be listed on the National Register of Historic Places, that doesn't take away from our eligibility under the statute, because we are and will continue to be part of a locally and important to a locally designated historic district. So I do think that the full 11 years is still very much on the table, and obviously we would appreciate whatever the select board chooses to do. But I do believe that the 11 years is on very much on the table, and that given the amount of money that we're talking about here, I think that the select board should take that into account as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Summers. Selectwoman Gilman, did you want to comment?
No, I think the interpretation of its position in the locally designated historic district is correct, but the National Register survey was done actually in 1980 and adjusted in 1984, and I just. We don't have any recommendations from the state or federally that this is individually what's the word? A resource to the historic district. I know it's in the national survey listed as is every other building on Water Street. It doesn't identify it as the most special building on Water Street. So I really appreciate that interpretation. I could interpret it differently, I guess is what I'm saying. And I still think that the changes that are made actually make it ineligible to be on the Federal Register of Historic Places. So that's my basis for not wanting the 4 years, but I could go with Selectwoman Cowan's compromise and do the whole 9 years instead of 11.
Thank you. With that said, Selectwoman Cowan, I think you have a motion.
I do, and that if I need to, well, Darren has his hand raised, and if he wants to speak, I would.
I was only going to talk to Julie made the point that somebody has to say the public benefit. So I actually brought up the public benefit. There's a whole bunch of them. I assume you don't want me to read them all, but I could read one. So it's for the record, if you like. Would that be?
That would be great.
Okay. All right. Bear with me because I have to go back to the screen here. The project will enhance the economic vitality of the designated area. And here's the answer. The project will inject commercial activity into a building which has long been dormant. Further, the proposed commercial activity of retail and restaurant use will augment the existing inventory of retail and food service establishments in the waterfront commercial district. That is one of, and I'm only going to read the one, there's one of 5, and I would believe that anybody who would read this application on our website will see that it in fact does meets the one necessary it needs to meet, but certainly meets all 5. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Winneman. This is all in our packet as well. Okay, so Selectwoman Cowan, you were going to make a motion, and I think, Mr. Winneman, you suggested that we include all of the legalese in the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm trying to find the motion in our packet.
I'm not sure I wrote it.
There's actually no motion, but you can kind of wordsmith the recommendations.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. So you want the RSA and the
number of years and the referring it to legal counsel.
Okay.
And the fact that the covenant would need to go 2 years, needs to be completed within 2 years. And Mr. Cowie said that was acceptable. So,
all right.
I apologize. One more thing: the 2 years should start when he can actually start building. In other words, we would say June 1st.
So you want the motion to include 2 years from this June 1st?
Yes, ma'am.
All righty.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to grant Ioka Properties LLC, owner of 53 Water Street, the Community Revitalization Tax Relief Incentive, which is RSA 79E, for the period of 9 years based on the economic development benefit that it will have for our downtown. I would request that the start date for the 2-year covenant be on June 30th, 2021.
Very good. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, and seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf?
Aye.
The clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye, the motion passes 4-0. Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We need to come out of the public hearing.
That's right. Entertain a motion to exit the public hearing on the Ioka Properties LLC.
So moved.
Second,
Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
Aye.
Clerk says aye, Mr. Chair.
Aye, the public hearing is closed. Thank you, everybody. Mr. Wyndham, you're back up for the mobile vehicle vending permit process and application.
Oh, I apologize. I thought that I was up for the, I thought that was after the reopening for outdoor dining.
The vending is next on the agenda, but if the board is inclined, if Mr. Wyndham would prefer reopen the temporary dining, go ahead.
Great. This is the easy one. Okay. Beginning in May 2020 and per Governor Sununu's emergency order, number 40, Exhibit C, Section Alpha, the town of Exeter opened for temporary outdoor dining and closed for same on December 31st, 2020 in most cases. While open, this was a boon to Exeter businesses and a bright spot for residents and visitors during the pandemic. Please consider reopening, starting immediately, for temporary outdoor dining under the same conditions. Neighboring towns have already opened owing to the recent nice weather, and we should as well. The Economic Development Department's specific request is that the town of Exeter allow businesses to utilize private and/or public spaces for temporary outdoor dining, subject to the conditions of Emergency Order Number 40. Add or continue, the town of Exeter as additionally insured for at least $1 million on their insurance policies, submit to sign off by relevant town departments, and follow all other existing regulations and ordinances. Terms of reopening should remain in effect until December 31st, 2021, unless Governor Sununu terminates Emergency Order Number 40.
Okay. Comments from the board?
Makes sense.
It does make sense. And I mean, I would, for one, be in favor of figuring out something to do long term in terms of outdoor dining. I think it's been a really wonderful addition to the town. Certainly very helpful in a pandemic and something that we should consider incorporating more of in the future.
Agreed. Any other comments? Then I would entertain a motion at this time.
Where'd it go? So what are you looking for as a motion to reopen temporary outdoor dining? Do we need to have a time certain or until the emergency order expires?
In terms of reopening, should remain in effect until December 31st, 2021, unless Governor Sununu terminates Emergency Order Number 40.
So moved.
That was easy. Okay, any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
Aye.
The clerk says aye, Mr. Chair.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wyndham.
Thank you all. There is a bill, SB 155, which I'll take a little credit. I wrote it, and it had a lot of help though with a lot of people. And it's going to be heard by the Senate on Thursday. If it passes the Senate, then passes the House, and the governor signs it, then you'll see this same order remain in effect through 2023, which would be fantastic, and that'd be statewide. So, okay, now the one that might be a little sticky. So, want me to jump right into this?
Please, yeah.
Okay. The town of Exeter's motor vehicle vending section of our commerce regulations may need updating. My office has been receiving complaints regarding motor vehicle vendors occupying prime locations in public spaces that A, take potential clientele away from high rent paying businesses, and B, take up parking space for potential customers. Rents on first floor Water Street in Exeter now go between $23 and $30 per square foot, with most being on the high end of that range. These businesses feel it's unfair to compete against highly visible motor vendors that don't have their overhead and don't pay rent or a mortgage for a storefront. Some have even accused the town of Exeter as, quote, subsidizing their competition, unquote. Others have stated our existing fee structure is too low and that annual permits are too long, particularly if an issue arises, leaving the town unable to address a remedy for up to a year. As visibility is one of the main drivers for consumers, Exeter's Economic Development Department has endeavored to find a solution that is fair to rent-paying retailers and restaurants and mobile vendors alike. While some have expressed a desire to do away with mobile vending, save for special events, my department feels otherwise. Mobile vending, if equitably managed, can be a good economic driver. And please see the attachments to consider the proposed changes. While I unfortunately don't have the ability to share screen, I can't show you, but it is in your packet, the location where I've suggested. I will say that what I didn't put in the memo was that we've received a few more applications, we believe, because of this issue. In other words, some folks, we haven't received the applications. I've had folks hold off on applying because I was hoping that we could make these adjustments. I think what's happening is people are seeing what's happening with certain mobile vendors, and they're thinking that they can just come right downtown and put a vehicle right where they want. There was a mistake made by former staff accidentally, and what happened is if our application says you need to say where you're going to be, what street, what space, etc. And we accepted applications that just said Exeter streets on them. Now, the problem with that is we gave an annual permit for Exeter streets that runs out sometime in the summer, and we can't address these issues because we can't move anybody because they could be anywhere legally per our ordinance. And no matter what we do tonight or any other night, we can't remedy that until the end of, we can't remedy any situation with any mobile vendor that has an annual fee until it's over. So what I'm looking to do is to try to fix this. I think we found a pretty good solution on the backside of Townhouse Common. And I'd like to, if I could, unless you have questions now, I'd like to read you the solution. What I think of it.
We have a question from Melissa Roy.
It's not a question. I can just share my screen if Darren would like anything shown. So just let me know.
Absolutely. Can you, if you can go into the largest one that has the listing, the proposed changes, the pictures are actually there. And if you could bring that up, and thank you for that, I can read through it. That's great, Melissa. Thank you. Oh, that's terrific. Okay, so can you go up a little bit? No, I'm sorry. Go down a little bit into the actual ordinance. Okay, so the first three remain the same. So that hasn't changed at all. It's just sort of the rules of being of vending. But here's the proposal. Unless otherwise approved by the Select Board or designee, motor vehicle vendors in the waterfront commercial WC or downtown C1 districts will be limited to the designated spaces in the public parking lot abutting Townhouse Common, which we'll show you in a second. That means that any other, the C1 district that is not downtown or any other part of town, it will just revert to the old application where you just identify where you're going to be and when you're going to be there. Signage at the Townhouse Common spaces will identify them as reserved for motor vehicle vendors, including a website that allows potential parkers to see a schedule of reserved dates and times for mobile vending. When not permitted for vendors, parking is permitted. During times vending is reserved, violators will be towed at the owner's expense. Unless otherwise approved by the Select Board or designee, mobile vehicle vending will only be allowed between the hours of 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. Can you slide that up a little bit? Thank you. And I'm going to skip the next one because it's the same. Daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly permit applications must specify the dates and times and preferred location. Monthly and quarterly applications can use general language as long as it is consistent, such as every Saturday between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. And so go ahead and look at the spaces. So I apologize. You can stop right there. When I made this originally, we were looking at having some spaces here and having some spaces down the waterfront by the boathouse. I was recalibrated by some of the business owners down there that do not want to see that there because it takes parking from the customers. So instead of those 3 spaces you see here, we would propose to go across the 6 or 6.5 spaces that are there. And I couldn't get it off Google Earth because they changed the picture and now there's leaves everywhere. So. Yeah, this just shows there's other spaces out there besides just this one spot. And then you can see what Bob did here, showing what it would look like right on that space. So if you want to pop out of that for a second, Melissa. I'm all set with that. Okay, thank you. So anyway, the thought process is we have some spaces. Mobile vendors generally come on weekends and sometimes in the afternoons, sometimes during the day. It shouldn't affect, as a general rule, parking there during the week. In other words, the pushback from anybody who parks up there, I'm there all the time. There's plenty of spaces. There's plenty of open spaces in that area. So any mobile vending, particularly when they'd be doing it, wouldn't really hurt things. The other thought process is that I don't want to do a mobile vending. I don't. I know some folks do. I don't. I think it's a good thing. But I think it's fair to say that let's put those folks on, if they want that product, then it's not right downtown and it's not taking your visibility away from the other businesses. I've been through this before in another town I worked with, and we had the exact same problem and the exact same pushback from local businesses. And what we did was we changed our ordinance. We moved the gentleman down to a park that was further out of town, away from the downtown. He still did quite well. So everybody was kind of happy with that. And that's what I'm proposing here. The complaints didn't really start happening until after the shops opened up. What I'm hearing from people is that they thought that the town of Exeter was just being lenient, saying, it's tough out there. Nobody's open downtown. Go ahead and come on downtown and park your vehicle here. That was not the case. And so when all the shops started opening up, that's when my phone started to ring. And so that's why I'm here with what I think is a fair, equitable solution. And I will shut up now.
So if lots of questions, Selectwoman Gilman had her hand up first, and then Selectwoman Round-Triolis.
One of the things that is not clear to me, or I think will be troublesome, is the signage. Because every time there's let's say somebody comes in to sell tchotchkes or what have you, and they only want to do it 3 days a week in that spot. And then somebody else wants to take the other 4 days or something like that. So that's a whole week where they're closed off for these hours. But then another spot will be somebody wants randomly. How many signs are we going to have?
I think so. It would be those. It's almost like if you see signs on both ends and with arrows saying these spots are taken. And it's pretty simple to do and I was going to ask you unfortunately, since I've been here 6 years, I've never had the opportunity to run this program. It's gone from Russ's office to rec, back to Russ's office, and it's always confusing as to who's doing what. I think if we have it in one place and anyway, that's my pitch, but we would have a website. I talked to Jay about putting the signs up. That site would clearly say, it would say, if a person's going to park there, they can see the sign that says, if you're going to park here, understand that this could be designated for mobile vending. Check this website before you lock your car and walk away. So that was my solution. I'm open to whatever you guys think.
No, that just seems a little awkward.
Okay.
To have somebody look at, I know everybody's carrying their phone around and you can look at a website, but when you're looking for a parking space, you just want to pull in and the sign right there says when you can and when you can't.
The issue we're going to have is if a person was, so the other issue we would have is if, let's say someone, and I don't know how they do it now because I've never run this program, but if someone designates a space for mobile vending, like they put it in their application right now and they're going to have a space, I would assume they or somebody would have to come put cones on it or something to save it. Because let's say they're not going to be there till 9 o'clock in the morning, perhaps that space will be taken by then. I thought a sign would just alleviate that issue. Because I don't think we have the bandwidth to do that. I mean, I certainly don't.
I just find that I understand what you're trying to do, and I think it's a great idea to stretch it out. Stretch out what we're offering downtown, but not be competitive with taking up the spaces downtown also. So this is a kind of as close as you can get a solution. I just can't picture how it's going to work as far as permitting and then making it known publicly that this space is reserved these hours on those days.
Yep.
Because I see those as being changeable frequently.
Yeah, that's my best solution. So that's why, you guys get to decide. I just get to throw the ideas out there.
Thank you, Selectwoman Gilman. Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf?
A couple of comments or questions, I guess, both. So one, I'm getting the impression that this was initiated by businesses feeling as if the competition wasn't fair to their businesses. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yes, they felt that it was
from citizens who were like, man, I can't park there anymore.
No, that's accurate. I haven't heard that. That's not an argument I've heard.
Right. So I'm not having an issue with the parking and, blocking off the parking if we needed to figure out a way to do that, even if vendors weren't using it during a specific amount of time. I think the bigger issue is, why is it our place to limit competition among businesses if we designate spaces where they can produce and sell and that sort of thing? Why is it our place to say that they can't do that? Like, why are we putting them in a back parking lot? If the business is successful and the business is something that people want to spend money on, then if the space is available and it's not an issue for citizens who are complaining about lack of parking, why are we getting involved?
Because we have a responsibility, at least I do anyway, to all businesses, and it's not just one business complaining. There's
I gather that
what we have is a person who's not paying, or we have not just one, by the way. That's the reason that's the way I'm trying to fix this solution, because I see a lot of other people saying, oh, well, why don't I just get a food truck and just park myself right in smack downtown Exeter? And do we want that? Obviously, it's not fair. We don't want to do that. So anyway, we want to have a vibrant downtown. We want to make sure that businesses that are paying just so much money. I don't think people really understand just how much money these businesses are paying to be
right. I agree with you on that front, but then I also think that then we create a system where food trucks are paying perhaps not the same amount that brick and mortar businesses are paying, but there is some financial dues owed to the town. And if we figure that out and they're doing that, obviously, if a business is not successful, they're not going to be able to afford whatever it is that they need to pay to the town. And they are not going to want to stay 3 days a week, 2 days a week, whatever the time frame might be. So I think, we have to allow for businesses to do what they do. And if there's a market for it and there's supply and demand and that's functioning, then our job is to make it as equitable as possible. So if obviously brick and mortar, they have certain things that a food truck doesn't have, so I think the question is not, let's just place you behind the, boathouse area where no one's seeing you. It's a question of like, if we have, let's say, 2 spaces available for food trucks, hypothetically speaking, what's the cost of parking there? How often are we allowing those food trucks to park there? And then we just kind of close it off. And then the town is also benefiting as they would for a brick and mortar business that's holding a space.
That's what Portsmouth does. Portsmouth has one space. Yeah, what you described is exactly what Portsmouth does.
A lot of places do, I think.
Right. It's a lot of money. But I didn't think we would want to do that. But if we want to do that, we could certainly do that.
I would love that to be presented rather than just saying no to everyone, because the whole point is to increase business in our downtown. If we have businesses that attract people downtown, then I don't think competition is a bad thing. I think it just makes you want to do better and want to serve better products to people if they're coming down for it.
Well, that solves Julie's issue of signage, because then we just have something designated.
And people are paying for it.
I will say this, that after this conversation, I think probably we shouldn't make any decisions tonight. Then maybe we do a little more research, and that's a good idea. That's something
because we have until, for those who have signed on for our error, we have until the summer, right?
Yes.
We have a little bit of time and wiggle room to figure out a system that might work for us, for citizens of the town and also for other businesses that feel like it's a little more equitable than what it currently stands at.
I don't think we quite have to the summer because we do have people that are in the queue, but considering these discussions, then I'll have to generate their interest, or excuse me, I have to explore their interest and say to them, yeah, the fee schedule you see right now may not at all be what you're going to expect. So, yeah.
I'd appreciate that. Yeah.
Absolutely. I like that idea too. I don't know. I'll have to bounce it by the businesses, but if it's only a few spaces, and the way Portsmouth does it is very, very interesting, and they rake in some money, and the people do well.
Right, and I know for a fact that folks who live here will drive out to certain areas for a food truck because they're excited about it. So if we have that kind of, you have a certain thing, you have a meal here, you have a dessert there. I'm more for the more business, the better, rather than less. And if they can all be successful, then great.
I believe Keith and Kathy from Trends were planning on calling in. And I don't know if they did, but there's at least somebody that could probably weigh in on it if they're here.
I see 2 phone numbers, and I'm open to letting them raise their hand. And while we wait to see if either number belongs to them, Mr. Ruffner has his hand up. Mr. Ruffner?
I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to throw one more thing into the conversation. Darren and I had a meeting and also had a discussion where, as part of a solution here might also be that can benefit everybody downtown is a lot of these areas in other towns and cities that have designated food truck areas. Then they incorporate, some sense of live music so that it's not just the attraction of those food trucks, but it's also something else going on for the community that, you might come to see the live music, but you might get your food or your drinks from another downtown business so that it becomes more, the cultural experience and something that benefits all of downtown as opposed to just those 1, 2, or 3 food trucks. And the Townhouse Common idea obviously has been a park that many of us in town, Parks and Rec team, have had our eye on as sort of an underutilized resource. And, concerts were done there a couple years ago when the project was going on in Swayze. So I just think that's an interesting part that could, become part of the conversation as you guys are working this out.
Good. Thank you, sir. And we have another hand up from the public. Looks like Henry, if I'm reading that correctly. Good evening.
I did get a text message saying Keith is on hold. Keith from Trends. I don't know what.
I have a hand. Dan, can we get any volume?
Seems he may be having some difficulties as well. Again, if he wants to call. If he wants to call 646-558-8656, you can enter webinar ID 890-0587-4577 and join that way. He can also email extvg@exeternh.gov or call 603-418-6425. And we'll help him either way.
Great. Thanks, Dan.
Just so you know, Henry, I see Henry Vance is there. He's the owner of Czar's Brewing.
Yep. No, that's who we're waiting for. So while we wait, Mr. Wyndham, I think, both Selectwoman Roundtree-Olaf and Selectwoman Gilman made some good points. So maybe after you've gone back, have discussions, let me know when you're ready to come back to the select board and we can get you on the agenda and continue this conversation. Henry, I think we can hear you. Oh, I thought we could. Hi, Henry.
Hi, Nico. Can you hear me? I apologize.
No apology necessary. Good evening. If you could just state your name and address for the record.
Sorry, my name is Henry Vance. I own Czar's Brewing on 2 Center Street. Just so you know, for explanation, I am not a resident of Exeter. I live at 364 Beatty Hill Road in Fremont.
Any objection from any objection from the board? Seeing none, Henry, go on, please. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. Again, I'm having technical difficulties, so you have to bear with me here.
We can hear you clearly.
Okay, so I'm calling in regard to the current conversation regarding food trucks, and not to try to push the conversation off onto a tangent, but I think it addresses what should be a larger discussion at some point, certainly not tonight, that has to do with public parking spaces. I know that myself, Tony Calandrello, and others in the downtown at the beginning of the pandemic asked about the possibility of using public parking spaces to try to survive as anyone else was trying to do in the hospitality business. And I think that's something that should be tied to this as at least Exeter begins to discuss things like downtown parking and food trucks, is the overall use of parking, public spaces by businesses going forward, because clearly, hopefully, I should say, the pandemic, for the most part, at least the most negative effects of it are behind us, but I still believe it's an issue we should discuss. So I just thought I'd bring that up briefly before the conversation goes too far. Again, I apologize if you can't hear me. My phone just keeps shutting on and off on me, so please accept my apologies.
No apologies necessary. We heard you loud and clear, and in fact, I believe that will be an ongoing conversation in future meetings this spring, so I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have another hand up with phone number ending in 395. Good evening. Can you hear us?
Keith, you're muted.
There we go. Can you hear us?
Hello, it's Kathy from Trends.
Hi, Kathy. How are you? We can hear you.
Good. Terrific. Okay, so I'm sitting here with my husband, Keith, and I. We own Trends at 85 Water Street. We are celebrating our 37th year in business, and we're very proud to be a vital part of the downtown community. I think what needs to be said, and this is very important, 2020 was a very, very difficult, unusual year with COVID-19. Coming off of this past year makes this topic especially important. All businesses, whether you are retail or restaurant, have had significant struggles. As we start to reopen and gain momentum with more business, the last thing we need is more competition. Competing for our customers that we have worked so hard to establish, we don't need to be competing for their business with other small trucks and things of that nature. Already we are playing catch up. This would take us several steps back. The town should not be endorsing and supporting motor vehicle vending when merchants and their building owners pay the rents, the taxes, and support our local organizations. The last thing we need is the town providing us competition. We need business now more than ever after the year we have all endured. It is not fair that a food or retail truck can take business from myself or my neighbor, not to mention very valuable parking spaces, which already is a continual issue and has been the 37 years I've been downtown. Our hometowns should have our backs and support. Weekends are our busiest days. Motor vehicle Vending should not be designed to set up shop on a regular or long-term basis when they are not paying comparable expenses as a brick and mortar business. We are not in favor of any motor vehicle vending, and I ask you to ask yourself, is it worth it to ruin the goodwill with downtown businesses for these small dollars?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy and Keith. I appreciate your comments tonight. Bring it back to the board. Any other comments or discussion, Selectwoman Roundtree?
Right. I just wanted to throw out the comment that I do disagree with the last statement. I think what some of these businesses do is actually bring more business to certain locations rather than take it away. I guess that's up for discussion, but I think when businesses are doing well, people have a reason to come downtown. And when they come downtown, they have a reason to spend more money and hang out even more. So, having an ice cream place open up doesn't take away from the burger place opening up or the clothing store opening up or the, massage parlor. So I think we can figure out a way to make all residents and exterior residents of the Seacoast area who want to have businesses and flourish work together so that, it's as equitable as possible. And yes, a lot of businesses are suffering, and I think we're trying to figure out the best ways possible to make sure that we keep everyone afloat as best as we can, which is, why we let off with the discussion about figuring out how to utilize the parks, how to utilize other areas and spaces that we have available to allow people to be successful. So I feel the frustration from businesses who are still struggling, but I do think that it's not as simple as blocking others from bringing businesses to the area when it can all be, we have space for it. And I think that we can figure out a way to do it equitably.
Great, thank you. Any other comments? All right, so Mr. Wyndham, maybe you could come back when you're ready, maybe next month.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to try to look at Portsmouth's model, and I'll talk to the downtown businesses and see what they think and come back. Somebody has a cat. I can hear it.
That would be mine. It's being taken care of.
No, I like cats.
I have one other question.
Yes, please.
I understand that this is a controversial topic, and I want to support all of the businesses we have in town while also not barring other businesses or mobile businesses from participating. So the other thing that I would be really interested in hearing from, we've sort of developed a secondary, business center up near the train station. And I would also be wondering if those folks and those businesses are wanting our help in permitting spaces there for food trucks to bring people there, or tchotchke trucks, or whatever it is. I think that I agree with Levy. I think that they are an economic driver. And I think that part of being equitable and looking at the full landscape in town is really looking at what spaces we can dedicate, where we can, allocate different spots. I am very sensitive to the trends conversation about the parking. I think that is an issue. And, we've been talking about parking for as long as I've been in town. So I would love to hear also what the businesses on the, sort of, what do we call this, uptown?
Corridor.
Yeah. So what would that do for economic development there? I'd be curious about when you come back.
Sure.
Okay. Good point. Thank you.
Great point, Molly.
Okay. Darren, you're still up with the Economic Development Department update.
Okay, I'll be quick. Especially since Elliot took some of my thunder. So Rob Ficara, Shooter Sports Pub in Exeter Bowling Lanes, is very pleased that bar games are back open with certain guidelines, so we can start to claw back some of the revenue he's lost. Folks don't know this, but he's every single step of the way. It's one of our, Rob is such a great guy and does so much work for the town, dedicates time, money, everything. And He's had struggles every single step of the way through no fault of his own, including the federal funding, the state funding, and then finally he got the darts back. That was a lot of work, and he got them back, and we're very happy for him. It accounts for 40% of his business, so this is a really big deal, and I know everybody knows him and loves him, and so anything we can do for Rob and every other restaurateur that's been hit hard, as you know, anytime we in the audience can frequent these establishments, it's really appreciated by them. I did want to say some good news. Tom Monahan's project across from Mobile on the Run is back up and running. The legal issues are completed, and it's looking pretty good at this point. So we do have some leads, and that's going in the right direction. Tom wanted to come on tonight. He couldn't because he's on a planning board in his hometown. But he wanted to mention that there's a whole bunch of interest right now on the back of Continental Drive, and that is a very large area that if we can land what he thinks we're going to land will really help our TIF and hopefully get it paid off ASAP. We have a Jersey Mike's coming in where AT&T used to be at the Hannaford Plaza, and Anytime Fitness Club next to the Dollar Store is open and ready for business. And last thing I want to say is there's been some talk about some of the issues, infrastructure in Portsmouth Ave, the sewer, what have you, and stipends. I do believe I'm going to be able to get that into the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, or CEDS, and I will have an update on the American Recovery Plan. We're waiting for information from the feds about. We know how much money we're going to get. We're trying to figure out what we can do with it, and that's my job. And I should be able to give an update on that within 2 weeks. And that's all. Thanks for entertaining all these things, and I appreciate it.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Wyndham before we move on? I would just like to acknowledge that since you brought up Mr. Ficara and Shooters, received a really nice written correspondence from him this morning, Darren, just acknowledging all of the folks locally and within the state that have helped him along the way, because you absolutely hit the nail on the head. I mean, he's hit a lot of rough patches along the way, but I do want to acknowledge all of the words that he wrote to the select board. I wrote to me to share with the select board just how instrumental you've been in helping him along the way. And I know that a lot of the other businesses feel the same way. So much appreciated. And thank you very much for your good work.
Thank you. And can I just add one quick thing I should have mentioned? Russell Prescott really, really helped him, and he's no longer on the executive council, and he called the governor, and he did it several times, and that's a big part of the reason. So if you see Russell Prescott out there, give him a pat in the back. It was really nice of him to do that. So thank you guys very, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wyndham. Doreen, we're ready for you. Our finance director, Doreen Chester, is going to give us a fiscal year 2020 year-end budget report.
Yes, good evening, or good night almost to everyone. I'm going to make it short and sweet. I know everybody's probably exhausted by this point. I just wanted to ask, did anybody have any particular questions for me after reading the report at all at this point? Or okay. All right, I'm just going to go for it. Real quick review. I know we had a lot of concerns with 2020 because of COVID, and we didn't know how the revenues would shake out at the end of the year. And for the general fund, we did very well. We collected 96.5% of our taxes by the end of December, which was $51.7 million. And then by February of 2021, we're up at 98%. So we did very well in that particular area. So no worries there. We did have some ups and downs in the other general fund revenues, like building permits. Building almost seized to a halt in a lot of instances. And if they were building, I was hearing that people couldn't get the resources, couldn't get the lumber and so forth. So there was a drop of $207,000 in that category in 2020. We had a really good interest rate in the prior year, which was 2.35% for our investments. And that dropped off by $78,000 in 2020 due to a 0.4% interest rate. I don't know when we'll see that come back, probably in a couple of years' time. But also, I just wanted to report that we did have some offsets to that revenue, and that was from the federal government under CARES and Coronavirus Relief Act. So we got in $362,000 in gopher funds, which covered a lot of or all of our COVID expenses for the year. The pieces that may not have been covered, FEMA came in and gave us $16,000, and from my understanding, there's going to be more in 2021. We also got $60,000 in additional revenue for election expenses and the extra upkeep for maintaining those safely and in a sanitary manner. So, all in all, I would say that it was a very good year for the general fund. We got $736,000 above the budget of $20 million, which, is good news. And as far as expenses go, all departments held down the cost of expenses during 2020. We were asked to do so, and we actually all spent $1.6 million less than projected budget in 2020. And that gave us a net income of $2.3 million, which will get turned back to the fund balance and to the taxpayers.
Great. Any questions so far for Doreen?
Okay. Okay, I'm going to move on to water fund. Water fund was strong. The revenues were $3.8 million, and they were 2.63 above the budget. So we had the rate increases. Last one was October in 2019. So it's doing its job for the water fund. Again, we had expenses held down tightly. They were $3.3 million, but $207,000 below the projected budget. So we had a realization of a net income of $671,000 in the water fund this past year. So that was very positive. We did have some issues with water and sewer collections because there was a moratorium from March through July that was ordered by the governor to not shut off utilities. So we did have a lot of folks that were not able to pay or just did not pay during that time period. But water is looking very good in the current year as far as receivables. I see more of an issue with the sewer fund all in all. So before I dive into sewer fund, does anybody have any questions on the water fund?
So are you seeing those receivables catching up?
I'm seeing them catch up with water and some sewer. But the thing that had to change, unfortunately, on the sewer side was since we can't shut off sewer, it's impossible. We finally started to lien sewer, which means it's a lien on someone's commercial property or home. And that has actually made people start to pay. Okay. People that haven't come in and paid in years are now paying because they don't want that on their home. And it's too bad that we had to take those steps, but the revenue was, really sinking in the sewer portion of our utility billing. So that's turning around, and I've spoken with the tax collector who also does the water sewer, and they're working with people on payment plans as well in those areas to help clean this up.
Great,
in general, I'm sorry, were you saying something?
I said thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. In general, the sewer fund is going to need work. And when I say that, I mean we're going to have to look at a rate increase probably in 2021. The revenues fell $2.4 million below projection. We didn't get the sewer revenues in as anticipated. The expenses were they were $417,000 below the budget. Even with that, we ran into a deficit of almost $1 million in 2020 in the sewer fund. So that was our net deficit. So we definitely have to talk about rate increases, unfortunately. And as I mentioned, we also were anticipating $861,000 from the state government to offset our debt service payment of over $3 million in December for the new wastewater plant. We didn't get it. The governor called it off because of the terrible year that, the state was basically having. So I know it's hard to sympathize there, but that's what happened. That's almost our net loss, is the amount that we couldn't get from the state that we were counting on.
Doreen, Selectwoman Gilman has her hand up with a question.
Yes, Julie. I just wanted to add on what you were just saying. In the currently proposed budget, we're not going to get it this year either.
That's what we figured. We didn't build it in this year. So again, it's going to go back to probably reviewing rates for the sewer fund.
Well,
and that's all I have for this evening, unless anybody has any specific questions.
Any questions for Doreen? Okay, I don't see any, Doreen. I read the full report over the weekend. It was very thorough, and I'm actually very happy with particularly the general fund, because I know conversations we had mid-year, we thought that December would be the telling point for us. So I'm happy with how that turned out.
Yeah, me as well. Very strong, very positive.
Yeah. So while we have you, we also have in our packet the MS 232 report that we all need to sign, and there is a deadline, correct?
Yes, it's due by the 29th of this month, 20 days after the vote.
Okay, so if we could get down and sign that, do we need to make a motion to accept this, Doreen?
No, you do not.
Okay, all right. Any last questions or comments for the finance director? Great. Doreen, thank you very much for sticking with us tonight.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
My pleasure.
We'll see you soon. The last item on our discussion items, if the board is inclined, I'd like to put off until our next meeting when Selectman Brown is here, and that is the select board representation to town committees. I think we need to have him here for that. So we will put that off if there are no objections. Great. So regular business. Madam Clerk, I hope you are ready to go. There's a few here. We have abatements, solar exemptions, and veterans credits, and elderly exemptions, and disabled exemptions. Which means we're all going to have carpal tunnel by the end of the week when we go down to our mailbox.
Sorry, I've been scrolling around the packet too much. I've got to.
Looks like page 197.
Oh, you're so sweet.
196.
Hey. Oop.
196.
I got it. For some reason, it wouldn't let me type it in. Okay. Mr. Chair, I move to approve an abatement for map 95, lot 64, unit 255 in the amount of $1,339.60.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Cowan?
Yes.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf?
Aye.
Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, this next one is a property that we denied at our last meeting, but it had the same lot number as one we approved. So this number is now the correct one for what the denial was.
Okay.
So this is, I move to deny an abatement for map 103, lot 4.
I'll second that. Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf?
Aye.
Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I move to approve an abatement for map 98, lot 25 in the amount of $1,329.81.
Second.
Okay, Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf?
Aye.
The clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I move to deny an abatement for map 65, lot 8.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf?
Aye.
The clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
Next is a list of solar exemptions. And Mr. Chair, I just want to say this is something that the Energy Committee has talked about, but other things have gotten in the way. But it's something for this board also to discuss. When we adopted a solar exemption back in 2008 or 9, we never defined what that amount of money would be or what the calculation would be. So now it's just a part of the begins with a D. The value of your property. It's included with the value of your property, whether that goes up or down. So there's no real credit right now or exemption. So that's something to talk about for next March.
Okay.
So these are the following map and lot numbers that have a solar exemption currently. Map 85, lot 29, map 52, lot 53, map 73, lot 149, unit 3, map 83, lot 1, map 64, lot 28, unit 1, map 73, lot 117, map 89, lot 19, map 74, lot 143, map 85, lot 34, map 52, lot 83, map 70, lot 142, unit 1.
Thank you.
All right, next is veterans credits. These are all for $500. Is it the will of the board to do them all in one motion?
Please.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I move to approve the veterans credit of $500 for the following locations. Map 52, lot 96, map 70, lot 32, map 83, lot 76.
I'll second that. Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Cowan?
Yes.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf?
Aye.
The clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
All right. Next, we have an elderly exemption for map 6927 in the amount of $236,251, and I move that.
Second.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf?
Aye.
The clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0.
Okay. Last is a disable exemption for map 95, lot 64, unit 326 in the amount of $125,000.
Second.
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf?
Aye.
Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, next we have permits and approvals. We have several permits to go through, and I think Melissa Roy is going to walk us through these, if I'm not mistaken. And the first is for application for the Exeter Memorial Day Parade.
How are you? So we have gone through all the guidelines that are currently given by the state, and there aren't any requirements saying that you can't have a parade. Currently, as we stand, there's still a mask mandate, like James said, in public places, and we hold a really popular, Memorial Day parade every year. So we brought it to the board for discussion, but I just wanted to let you know that there isn't anything that says that we can't. We have been in discussions with the applicant that she would promote social distancing at the gathering at the end, where they do the little memorial service. So it's just a pretty straightforward, and we would work with the police department and everything else like that as well.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board?
I will say, bless them for organizing this yet again. We missed it last year, and it'd be nice to see it again this year.
Couldn't agree more. So I would entertain, if there's no other discussion, I would entertain a motion to authorize permitting for the Memorial Day Parade.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Ranchi-Olaf?
Aye.
Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Great. Thank you, Melissa.
All right. And the next permit that we have is from Team. They are proposing a monthly event down on Swayze Parkway. We've talked with the organizers. We've talked with police, with fire, with health. They have given us the application with all of the information. We did have a Zoom call instead of a site walk, and went through any issues. The one change this year, or one of the changes this year, is there is the potential, not in the way that, trying to say it this way, not the way the permit currently stands, but there is the possibility the team could come back to the select board to request use of the Parkway to put some sort of beer garden, which would be in partnership with a local brewery. But that is understood by both the applicant and the police chief that if that were to go forward, the applicant would come back to the board for further discussion. So that isn't a permanent part. They are looking to have art and music vendors and music, and they have gone through all of the protocols that are currently on the books, and all of the corresponding department heads have signed off on it. But I am happy to answer any questions, and I believe Scott was on earlier. I'd have to check to see if he's still on, if he has anything he would like to say.
He is here, and I was going to offer him the opportunity to speak if the applicant would like. Yes, Mr. Ruffner.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Melissa pretty much covered everything. The potential for the beer thing, that's simply something Darren and I had talked about with Czar's Brewery and one of the other local breweries. But we were waiting to see, what happens with his outdoor dining legislature and whether, that could sort of be involved. But sort of the structure and the vibe and atmosphere of the events. If that's something we wanted to bring back to you guys, that would literally be, sort of a small showcase of one of our local brewery businesses. It would not change, the event at all. But what we're pretty much doing is doing our usual 2 bookend events, May and September. And, for years, we've kind of been working toward doing a more regular thing once a month. And with everything going on with the pandemic, so many artists just don't have a lot of opportunity to sell their work. So many outdoor events have been canceled. And so there was just a big sort of push, to have more opportunity for them. So each one of these events will be structured the same way, same maps, same guidelines. And the 2 that we normally do would still be the sort of primary events. And then the ones in between in June, July, and August would be more focused on the vendors, the art vendors themselves. And we will probably be partnering with some other nonprofits in town for the performances. We're working with Musical Arts, which is a children's theater group in town, partnering with them, and maybe in one of the Saturday events, one of the performances would be a theatrical performance. So yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Let me know if you guys have any questions.
Okay, if you could stay on for a second. Any questions for Mr. Ruffner? Okay, and this meets the criteria for the number of events per year, and everything else looks pretty straightforward. So we'll be making a motion to permit the event minus the alcohol, which you'd have to come back.
Yeah.
Once you have that started. Okay. All right. Just to be clear. So, I would entertain a motion, and whoever makes the motion, if we could just indicate that it would be for the events and not for the alcohol request at this time.
Mr. Chair, I can do that.
Okay.
I would make a motion, and I'll just do them all in one motion, if that's fine with everybody.
Please. Yes. Yep.
I will make a motion for an event for team for Saturday, May 22nd, Saturday, June 19th, Saturday, July 17th, Saturday, August 21st, Saturday, September 18th, all in 2021.
Is there something? Okay. Thank you, Selectwoman Roundtree. If there's a motion and a second, any further discussion? Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf?
Aye.
Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. And then, Mr. Ruffner, while you're there, I think the next permit is yours as well, correct?
Yep.
All right. So why don't you just hang on in case we have questions. Melissa?
So team has done in the past this concept of First Fridays on the bandstand in downtown where they play music. It's really more of a revitalizing downtown. It isn't necessarily event. You know, people may stop and listen, but at least up until this point, we haven't seen large crowds. So it's not really a big event. So we talked with that, the same thing, police, fire, health, everything is fine. It is more just having music downtown. So we, at this time, don't see any issues with it and the requirements, and would love to have you guys vote on that.
Okay, Mr. Ruffner, did you have anything to add?
Nope, she covered it. I mean, this is the one that we've heard from downtown businesses the most about. Just wondering if we're going to bring it back, just because it, brings some life and some positivity downtown. And even pre-COVID, it didn't really gather or cluster, crowds. It was just people stopping on benches or on the town hall steps, that kind of thing. So we just want to bring this back and, give people some music to listen to as they're walking around.
Great. Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mr. Ruffner? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve this set of dates.
Mr. Chair, I can do that.
Okay.
I'll move to approve May 7th, June 4th, July 2nd, August 6th, September 3rd, and October 1st for Friday, First Friday live music on the bandstand for team from 4 to 7 p.m.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk?
Selectwoman Cowan?
Aye.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf?
Aye.
Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Mr. Ruffner, thanks for your patience. It was a long agenda tonight.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, moving along, we have the town manager's report. Melissa, I don't know if you had anything specific that we haven't covered tonight.
So I'm just going to really quickly say that we were contacted by Congressman Pappas's office late Friday afternoon with the proposal, requesting proposals for infrastructure project, the state of New Hampshire will be sending 10 proposals down to Washington, D.C. So we will be working with department heads in the next week or two to submit some proposals, and we'll keep you in the loop if we get additional funding, but additional funding is always welcome if possible.
Great, thank you. And I know that came late Friday afternoon, so I appreciate you jumping on that today, and we'll look forward to getting an update at the next meeting.
Mr. Chair, if I can just add on to that, I was in a conference call with the congressman's staff, and I have a document that I can send around that talks about how that the whole new American Recovery thing, or how that's going to be laid out, and like cities get their money directly, but other towns like ours are going to get their money through the state. Some of it's segregated into particular uses, and so that's laid out in this PowerPoint that I can send everyone.
That'd be great, Selectwoman Gilman. And my understanding is that the states, the government has 60 days upon President Biden signing last week, and then the states have another 90 days to distribute half.
Yeah, it's all moving very quickly.
And then another year and 90 days to get the other half, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. Great. Well, Select Board Committee report, Selectwoman Gilman, since you've got the floor, we'll start with you.
I actually don't have a lot because of the timing of these meetings. The Energy Committee would like to have some time on the 29th, or if possible, if not a couple weeks later, to talk about the community power aggregation that we've been working on with other towns. And there's a whole group that's trying to put it together. That's where we can all gather around, and the whole town pays one rate, and including the residents pay one rate. We aggregate the cost of the energy and go out to the lowest bid. It's a great idea because your energy costs will go down, and we'll have a choice of whether we take mixed renewables and gas, or just all renewable energy out of the grid. So that's exciting. And then I think that's it.
Okay. I think we've got a lot of things piling up for the 29th. We could try to sneak that on, but if not, would the 12th be acceptable?
I think so. I don't think there's any deadline for it right now.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you, Selectwoman Rountree-Olaf.
Yep. So we had a meeting on Friday, March 12th, the Housing Advisory Committee, and Darren, our friend Darren, brought on 3 business owners, Rachel Ella from Cambridge Trust, Gina Dickinson from Riverwoods, Exeter, and Matt Burke from Las Olas, to talk about the issues that they face in retention with sort of mid-level employees based on housing affordability. And so we had a conversation about that. And they're going to extend the conversation to other local towns over the next few weeks to kind of see what issues other areas and what other businesses in our area are facing as well. So that was our meeting on Friday.
Great. That sounds exciting, actually.
Wait, can I put a damper on that? No, I don't mean for you, but my committee had several affordable housing bills that went through and were defeated. Very disappointing, but they have to go to the whole floor now because it was a 10-9 split. And so we still have a chance. Call your rep. I already know how I'm going to vote on it.
Julie, support affordable housing.
Okay. But just to put that out there.
Okay, thank you. Great, thank you, Selectwoman Rountree-Olaf. Selectwoman Cowan.
Yes, I had both the Planning Board and Water and Sewer Advisory Committee. I know that I've been lobbying to put the siphon project as first on the list of projects that we would need the help with this Reinvestment and Recovery Act. So that's what we talked about with the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee, in addition to our regular abatements. The DPW staff is going to come back to us, and I know that we're going to really take a look at what we need to do going forward to make sure that this siphon project is taken care of and we are not at risk. The Planning Board, there was, we heard one application. It was McFarland Ford Realty. They were wanting to put a parking lot to store their cars behind where they are. And if you can picture McFarland Ford Realty, it's on, it's off of Holland Way. So that's where the additional parking lot would be. And the Planning Board sent it back to the developers and to McFarland Ford because they did not have a plan to have any sort of landscaping. So like no trees, no anything. It was just going to be totally clear cut. There wasn't going to be any thought into replacing some of the trees that they were cutting down, the reasoning was because it was just for employees. There would not be any customers or anything back there, but also the planning board really felt like if you're going to be doing that much clear cutting, you should think about what a mitigation plan looks like. That is, I think, my full report.
That's interesting. No, go ahead and finish.
Sorry, I was going to say I did miss the police committee meeting. I'm not sure if Daryl was there, but I was.
No, we were all. They held it on election day, so we were.
Yeah, they held it on election day.
Brown was with us. Yep.
I heard it was a very interesting discussion. The police had their bargaining person on their union rep, and so the committee heard from him. And there, again, to put this out to the Exeter community, this is the stakeholders community. The community has a vested interest in our police force. And so if there are things that you would like on the agenda, it is certainly, contact the chair and ask for those things to be discussed.
Yeah,
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm going to add on to everybody's reports. From the Conservation Commission, we saw the McFarland Ford presentation, and I thought we discussed the screening from at least Holland Way. But the other thing to note about it is that it is going to have a pervious pavement, which is nice. So it filters water through without any trying to get all the salt, et cetera, that might be there out. We don't see that very often.
That's true. Thanks for pointing that out. But I don't think that I have anything else.
I just wanted to do a quick PSA, Selectwoman Cowan. How long is the survey still open? The police
survey is not still open.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll be excited to see the results of that.
Yeah, there was good engagement, good community engagement. So I'm excited to see those results and have the data synthesized as well. I think that's going to be really interesting.
Terrific. Thank you. I did not have any committee meetings, but the River Advisory meets on Thursday. So I will have an update on that for you on the 29th. We have quite a bit of correspondence, but a lot of it is the same. So I'll just hit real quickly. We had a thank you note from Big Brothers Big Sisters. We had an email update from Jennifer Mates giving us a construction and project update for 2021. We attached a copy of the American Rescue Plan for folks to read through our packet. And the rest of the correspondence was all in favor of keeping the Swayze Parkway road closed to vehicular traffic. And of course, we talked about that earlier, and I'm sure we'll be having further conversations throughout the spring and summer on that. And lastly, reviewing the board calendar, we next meet on March 29th. And then also into April, we'd be scheduled for April 12th and April 26th, unless there are any conflicts or objections. I don't want to set a date now until Selectman Brown is with us, but we do need to set aside a Saturday in April. Due to COVID and the pandemic last year, with everything being upside down in the spring, we didn't do this, but typically the select board meets, it's a public meeting that we post, but we meet on a Saturday morning to go over goal setting for the upcoming year. So we can start thinking about dates, and then on the 29th, when Selectman Brown's back, we can pick a Saturday that is mutually convenient for all of us and just take a couple hours to go over goal setting. Interim town manager Melissa Roy would be there if Mr. Dean's not back at that point. And also keep in mind, we could do it Zoom, but where it's the six of us, see if you're comfortable maybe meeting in a bigger space where we could social distance. Either way is fine with me. I'm comfortable either way. So whatever we decide as a board, but we can talk about that the 29th. We do not have any non-public. Any other comments or discussions from the board tonight? All right, seeing none, I wanted to get through this before 10 o'clock. We made it with 15 minutes to spare, so great job, everybody. I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
That was an enthusiastic second. Madam Clerk.
Selectwoman Cowan.
Aye.
Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
Aye.
Clerk says aye. Mr. Chair?
Aye, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Be well.
Good night.
Congrats, Molly.